Hi, I hope you've been well. It's been about 2 weeks since I made any videos, and honestly, it was a much-needed break. I had a lot of real-world adulting to do, and just oof. It was nice being able to take a step back from making videos, but I also really missed it. Making YouTube videos is time-consuming, but also really fun. I think I just need to figure out a way to balance all of my priorities. My respite these past couple weeks was naturally reading. I read a lot of interesting books this month, and I'm excited to catch up with you and chat about them. I wanted to try a couple new things this month too. First, I'm going to include some merch in this video. Some of you may know that I love buying merch of my favorite series, and I tend to buy too much of it. I thought it'd be fun to include a few items here, but let me know if you'd prefer a separate video for merch hauls. I have tons to show off, but I didn't want this video to be too long. Second, normally I like to sort or organize my hauls a little bit, like comics and then novels, or new series and then continuing series. Today I decided to sort books purely based on vibes. And again, let me know if you'd prefer things to be organized a certain way, like by rating or genre. Without further ado, let's go! Up first, I received a batch of print box prints from South Korea. A print box is basically a kiosk where anyone can print photos using a code. This first group is all from the BL manhwa Payback, which is one of my absolute favorites. I also picked up a print from Painter of the Night and a print of the dashing Yoon Tae-jun from Unintentional Love Story, another one of my favorite manhwa ever. I also just received an art book. This is a collection of Omniscient Reader fan illustrations by the artist Mello. I believe this is still available on Booth, so if you love Omniscient Reader, you also need to pick this up. Their illustrations are so lovely. I felt all of the feels while flipping through this. I'm still in the middle of my reread right now, and it's just reigniting my love for Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. Then I received the coolest thing ever. This is a Tears of Themis fanzine centered around the character Marius. I adore him, he is so cute. I love how this feels like an actual magazine. The thoughtfulness behind every single article was so nice. I had a lot of fun flipping through this too. On to the books themselves. Up first, I picked up Restart After Growing Hungry by Kokomi. This is the continuation of Restart After Coming Back Home. I loved the first volume, so I knew I wanted to pick up the sequel as soon as I could, and I'm really glad that I did. Yamato and Mitsuomi are just perfect. They are still just as sweet and charming. Yamato's smile makes my heart grow 3 sizes and also melt. But now, Mitsuomi is also smiling a lot, and his smile makes life so much better. There was just so much smiling all around in this volume, and I absolutely loved it. I love seeing characters be happy. I felt so relaxed and happy while reading this volume. The gentleness in their interactions with each other, their supportive friends and family, and the inherent calm of an idyllic life in the countryside. All of it was perfect. Also, now I really want to order produce from Yamato's farm. Being able to order farm produce online seems so cool. Restart After Growing Hungry was the perfect continuation to Restart After Coming Back Home. I love how Yamato and Mitsuomi both approached their relationship at their own pace, but also felt compelled to try a little harder for the sake of one another. These two care about each other so much. This is the kind of couple that makes me believe in love all over again. I'm so glad Yamato in particular is able to move forward a little. He deserves to. I could reread both of these volumes over and over again. I really want to check out the live-action movie next, and hopefully I can do that soon. Up next, I bought volumes 1 and 2 of the Vietnamese edition of Saye by Uja. I absolutely love this author. They are a fantastic writer. When buying the novel, it already came with some merch, and I had the option of buying some extra adorable acrylic standees. As of now, I'm still mainly reading the manhwa for Saye, but hopefully I can crack into the novel soon too. I love this story so much. I'm a big fan of slice of life in general, but Saye also always keeps me on my toes. Jiang and Gu Fei are both so fascinating, and I love learning about them. their emotions, their conflicts, their decisions all felt so real. The way these two have shaped each other and helped one another grow and heal is so astounding and touching. I could cry thinking about all the ways they've supported each other. I know it sounds a little weird, but I really love stories with characters who have troubled pasts, and seeing how they unpack them and move forward. I also love seeing how all of the different arcs and plot points mingle and develop in this novel. I really hope this gets licensed in English one day because I think saye would be really popular here. It's both funny and sweet, but also raw and poignant. Next, I picked up My Brain is Different, Stories of ADHD and Other Developmental Disorders by mdzs. I absolutely love autobiographical works and hearing people's stories, so picking this up was a no-brainer. I also really loved how the author gathered stories from all sorts of people. That was such a cool thing to do. Reading this manga reminded me of one of my favorite James Baldwin quotes, which I shall recite to you right now. You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive. Wasn't that great? This quote, I think, sums up how I felt while reading this manga. It was so important and crucial for me to hear about people who were only diagnosed in adulthood. I'm keeping this as vague as possible, but there have been plenty of moments throughout my life when I thought I processed or experienced things, quote-unquote, differently. And reading this manga genuinely made me wonder if this is something I should look into or talk to someone about. In addition to reflecting on myself, I liked learning about the types of support in Japanese healthcare and Japanese society, like with the job placement and transition programs and public assistance. I also appreciated the candidness in one person's experience when they mentioned that Japan has the structural support for people with developmental disorders, but not necessarily the emotional or societal support. It was all so fascinating. I think this is such an important manga. For people like me who wanted to see if anyone else may have felt the same way as we do, it's relatable and eye-opening. And I think for people who don't know anything about developmental disorders, this manga is also formatted in a way to teach, like with the author notes. I also think that some of the feelings in this manga are quite universal, deciding what it means to be normal, the feeling that everyone around you has it together while you don't. As of now, I read most of the stories and I'm excited to finish it soon. Up next, I picked up Hyperventilation by Bunpankyu. I believe this started off as an animation a couple years ago. I remember people being so excited and hyped for it. I didn't watch it until recently, but everywhere in the Korean BL community you'd hear about hyperventilation. How often do you see an indie artist creating their own BL animation? So when I found out that Tokyopop was printing the manhwa adaptation, I was so excited. I too wanted to experience this. My thoughts on it, however, are a bit complicated. So get cozy as I ramble. When I read this manhwa, I thought the layout was interesting. It felt like I was watching a movie, or reading stills from a movie. There are a lot of lovely panels, and I thought the color grading was whimsical and soft. It was quite pretty, but there wasn't a lot of dialogue or meat to this story. If anything, it felt more like a tableau, or getting a sip of a beverage. I thought this artistic approach to storytelling was neat, but I was mostly left wanting a lot more. I was also expecting a lot more since so many people love hyperventilation, but it didn't stick with me at all because there was nothing to stick to. Like, that's it? Left unsatisfied, I bought access to the animation, which you can watch on Vimeo for $5. Let me tell you, that was the best $5 I have ever spent. Why was the animation so good? It was worlds better than the manhwa adaptation. I felt so immersed, captivated. I couldn't look away for a moment. Even after I finished it, less than 30 minutes later, I was ready to watch it again. It was just that exhilarating. That's all to say, if you're at all interested in hyperventilation and know nothing about it like I did, I would say first watch the original animation. And then, once you fall in love with it like I did, then go buy the book to support the artist some more, and for collecting purposes. Starting with the manhwa left a lot to be desired. I also wanted to add that the manhwa actually leaves out a crucial detail that the animation included. Personally, I thought the implication was clear, but I did see a lot of people have questions about this detail after reading the manhwa, whereas it was clearly addressed in the animation. I wonder why the manhwa left that out. The animation also has an extra episode which ties everything up nicely, and it makes the story even better. Honestly, after watching it, I'm even more upset by how basic the book is. It gave me nothing. But at the same time, I'm happy I bought it because the animation was that good. The one thing that I did like about the book was the artist's commentary in the end, like notes on how they wanted the actors to moan a certain way at certain points. That was really cool and not something I get to see often. Overall, I would say Hyperventilation, the animation, is really cool. The plot still is overall very simple, but the visuals, acting, and eargasms made it a solid 8 out of 10 at least. Hyperventilation, the manhwa adaptation, is probably a 5 out of 10. Still really pretty and a new way to experience manhwa, but that's about it. Next, I picked up Secret XXX by Hirohara Meguru. Some months ago, it was kind of hard for me to find this book in English, so I actually ended up buying it and reading it in Japanese. Kind of on a whim recently, I felt like buying it in English just for completion's sake. Some of you may know that I am a huge fan of Therapy Game, another manga by Hirohara Meguru. Secret XXX is the original story that Therapy Game is a spin-off of. I thought this manga was great. Well, to be honest, when I read the first chapter, I wasn't that impressed. I thought it was just okay, but as I kept reading the volume, it got increasingly more and more interesting. And by the end, I almost wish this manga went on a bit longer too. I just love manga about animals. The setting was so great. We do see a bit of Shohei and Itsuki in Therapy Game, but it was really nice seeing their full story in Secret XXX. Shohei in particular is such a good character. I really loved his growth, and his mom is just so great. She was only there for a couple pages, but she was awesome. I think Therapy Game is overall a stronger story, but Secret XXX is too sweet to pass up. Next, I bought The Pet Detective Agency by Noji. I picked this up mostly because the title sounded ridiculously adorable, and it did not disappoint. This manga was absolutely delightful. I had such a good time reading it. It had a lot of my favorite beats: cute animals, detectives, an unlikely duo, an age gap, handled very tastefully I might add. It was funny, easygoing, and relaxing. It was basically the perfect manga for me. This manga is also seriously so funny. I love how Ro kept making passes at Fumi. I love how Fumi kept saying he didn't want to keep the animals and ended up doting on them anyway. Even the fight scenes were really funny. Pretty much every corner of this manga had some amount of humor or fun laced into it. I also really loved the art in this manga. It really fits the vibes. I had a genuinely awesome time with this. I was smiling a lot. It had a sort of refreshing feeling to it as well. Like I felt rejuvenated after reading it. I'm so glad I picked it up, and I'm definitely going to read it again when I'm in the mood for something lighthearted and funny. Next, I bought CANIS Dear Mr. Rain by Zach, which I'm guessing is the pronunciation. A little while ago, I became really interested in Kuma's books because they're all so beautiful, and this was on my radar. But I saw it was going out of print or just getting really hard to find. Naturally, I was a little bummed. But then Kuma announced they were printing an updated version of Dear Mr. Rain, and I pre-ordered it immediately. I think the difference between this and the original is that this version has some extras included, which is really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed this volume. The vibe and atmosphere, the art, the characters, the pacing of the story. Everything about this was such a smooth and velvety read. I could not put it down at all. The character backstories were also phenomenal. This one volume accomplished so much. Ryo is so cute and almost pitiful, and Satoru is so funny and cool. I really loved Ryo's journey in learning to do things for himself. I also just really love the dynamic between these two, like a puppy and his owner. I never considered cohabitation as something that I would point out and compliment, but I really liked that aspect too. And I really love that this volume took its time to build up the trust and the bond in this relationship. That was so well done. This is one of those cases where I would actually be totally fine if this relationship stayed platonic, but I'm curious to see how romance will develop in the future. Even before I finished it, I knew I wanted to pick up the sequel. The preview for the next volume was such a whirlwind of emotions, so I cannot wait to see what happens next. Next, I bought Volume 1 of Merman in My Tub by Itokichi. It's been a while since I sat down and watched some anime, so a couple weeks ago I logged onto Crunchyroll, went through my watch list, and found the Merman in My Tub anime adaptation. It sounded cute, so I started it, and it did not disappoint. The main character, Tatsumi, unwittingly saves a merman, Wakasa, and brings him home. Wakasa does not feel like returning back to his home, so Tatsumi winds up with a funny and spoiled new roommate who is driving up his water bill. The anime was so entertaining. I enjoyed watching it so much that I decided to pick up the first volume of the manga. Why not, right? The manga is a collection of 4-panel comics, and I just adore it. I absolutely adore how more and more of Wakasa's aquatic friends have also set up camp in Tatsumi's home. Meeting all of them has been such a treat. They are so silly. Tatsumi is also such a good sport about it, but he cannot catch a break. I probably will continue to pick up volumes every now and then because it really is so funny too. Perhaps because of the 4-panel format, I don't feel the urge to read the entire volume in one go, so I've been reading a couple pages throughout the day. I think this format works well for me, especially since I'm much busier these days. Up next, I received Mogi Sayaka's Final Testament to the Moon. I made a separate review for this manga. I'm not sure if this haul or that review will be done first, but they should be live around the same time. I actually received a review copy of this manga, which still blows my mind. Who would have thought that this day would come? I certainly did not. I feel like a professional all of a sudden. I think the whole process of getting this manga was a lesson to me that sometimes I need to be a little courageous and seek out the opportunities that I want. I'm definitely going to try and be more confident in myself going forward. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that review when it comes out. Next, I picked up Volume 1 of the manga adaptation of My Happy Marriage by Agitogi Akumi, Kosaka Rito, and Tsukioka Tsukiho. This novel was on my radar a little while ago, but I think I ended up prioritizing other books at the time. A little while ago, another manga tuber / pal of mine, Liddy, recommended this to me, and I adore her taste, so I wanted to pick it up right away. I went with the manga adaptation because I'm reading a lot of novels right now and wanted to give my eyes a break with some manga. Oh my goodness, this volume absolutely ruined me. I felt so much despair within the first couple pages. I could not handle all of the abuse Mio had to endure. To see the shell she was reduced to seriously broke my heart. I wanted to punch her dad in the face. And so the first act of kindness in this manga literally made me tear up, because if anyone deserves to be treated with respect, it's poor Mio. On one hand, I was so glad that Mio finally escaped her abusive household, but on the other hand, she still carries all of that trauma with her, so it's not like she's truly free yet. Doesn't that just break your heart? Despite all of the sadness I felt for Mio, I really enjoyed this volume. It was so satisfying and rewarding seeing her gradually, very gradually, start to want a tiny bit more for herself, to see her treated well by her fiancé, and so on. By the end of the story, I want her to be the happiest woman in the world. I'm seriously rooting for Mio, and I want to continue this manga just to see her start to heal a little. I'm also seriously hoping for the downfall of her family as soon as possible. I already pre-ordered Volume 2 of the manga, but I'm probably going to pick the novel up soon, just because there are more volumes of it out right now, and I need to know what happens next. Next, I bought Volume 2 of the manga adaptation of The Other World's books Depend on the Bean Counter by Irodori Kazuki, Wakatsu Yatsuki, and Ohashi Kikka. I loved Volume 1 so much. It was easily one of the best things I've read this year, so I bought volume 2 as soon as I could. I had the biggest, cheesiest grin on my face while reading this volume. You know when something is so good that you just feel like kicking your legs out? Like that. I was grinning so much that I'm pretty sure I added a ton of smile lines to my face. Basically, this volume was so good. Kondo and Aresh are so funny. I love the banter, the snark, and the misunderstandings between the two of them. I love seeing Aresh scold Kondo. I love seeing Kondo try to sneak his way around his new grumpy caretaker. Aresh is the cutest man ever. I love a good gap moe. Kondo's workaholic tendencies and the toll they've taken on him were such a mood, but they also broke my heart. I'm glad he has someone like Aresh to bully him into taking care of himself. I hope Kondo can find meaning in his life outside of work too. A lot of the people around me, and myself included, tend to be workaholics, and I really wish for all of us to get a chance to relax. All in all, I could not put this volume down, and I can't wait to read volume 3. While I do love the slow build and the tension between the two main characters, I love how this manga is more than just a budding romance. I love how volume 2 continued to build up this new world and introduced new things about magic, for example. That was really interesting, and I'm eager to learn more. Next, I picked up 2 copies of volume 1 of the manhwa adaptation of Global Examination by Musu Lee, another author I am obsessed with. I think Global Examination was my first taste of the unlimited flow genre. If you've never heard of the term unlimited flow, it's basically a combo of survival, horror, challenge genres, usually involving some kind of puzzle or game and an overarching system. Honestly, at first blush, I thought unlimited flow sounded kind of tacky. It didn't sound that interesting to me, but at this point I had already read a few of Musu Lee's books and built an incredible faith in their writing, so I thought I'd give Global Examination a chance. I am so glad that I did. This was such a wild, wild ride. It has a slow start, but after the first scenario or two, it went from 0 to 100. I could not stop reading it at all. The characters are great, and the scenarios are really interesting and somewhat sad. The combo of really clever people solving really clever games was really interesting. You can read the manhwa on Bilibili. I picked up 2 copies because I wanted all of the goodies, and I'm quite happy with my decision. Next, I picked up volume 1 of the manhwa adaptation of The World After the Fall by Xingxiong, Undead Kamja, and S. Sainan. This manhwa piqued my interest for a couple reasons. First, I am a big fan of another work by Xingxiong, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is one of my favorite novels, so of course I wanted to check out another work by this iconic writing duo. Second, I love Red Eye Studio. They're the team behind a lot of popular webtoon adaptations like Omniscient Reader, Solo Leveling, Tomb Raider King, even BTS's Seven Fates Chaco. Third, and in some ways not important, but in other ways the most important, my weakness is beautiful fictional characters. I mean, look at this guy. Basically, this manhwa had a lot of good stuff going for it before I even started. I've actually been reading it on the Webtoon app for a few months now, but I was really excited to see it printed physically. In the Korean market, Webtoons are still extremely popular, but I know anecdotally that here a lot of people still prefer printed media. So when I heard about Ice Press, I was excited for people who may have otherwise ignored Webtoons to finally start picking them up. And with the growing popularity of Korean and Chinese works in the West, maybe even more of my favorites will be available here too. It's a win for everyone. Of course, I wanted to experience rereading this webtoon in print, so I read this book a few days ago. I could not put it down at all. Jaehwan is such a cool protagonist, so I had a lot of fun following him along, but my heart seriously hurt for him too. I don't think I would have lasted as long as he did. My mental fortitude is nowhere near that level. I also really like the focus on his journey, and his persistence is seriously so admirable. I gotta say, Xingxiong is really good at world building and creating captivating characters. I would really like to read the original novel one day, and I'm definitely going to continue picking up the physical books. Next, I picked up 2 copies of Volume 4 of the Scum Villain Self-Saving System by mxtx. One is the Barnes & Noble exclusive, which has a fold-out illustration, and the other is the special edition, which comes with a lot of cute goodies. Merch and special editions are really common in the Eastern Danmei market, so I was pleasantly surprised when 7seas announced these special editions. It feels like we're finally catching up to the Eastern market. It feels a bit bittersweet that Scum Villain is over now and we don't have new volumes to look forward to. I'm seriously going to miss this ridiculously hilarious story. The mix of extra stories in Volume 1 was absolutely perfect. I laughed, I felt emotional and emo. It was great and a perfect way to end this journey. I also picked up Volume 3 of the German edition of the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, also by mxtx. I actually completely forgot about ordering this book, so I was beyond surprised when it arrived in the mail. On one hand, part of me is wondering if I'm really going to continue buying the series in German, but on the other hand, every time I look at this stunning 4-edge, I fall a little more in love. So far, we've had a blue volume, a pink volume, and now a dandelion yellow. I really wanted Volume 4 to be purple, but it's going to be a beautiful green color. Green and flowers. Chef's kiss. I also picked up these adorable Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation mittens. Aren't these the cutest things you've ever seen? I ordered these months ago, and they actually arrived just in time. The weather in New York City has been so relentlessly cold recently. Next, I picked up Volume 6 of the Vietnamese edition of Heaven Official's Blessing, also by mxtx. Once again, I am just in love with Vietnamese editions. The covers are works of art. I think the Vietnamese edition wraps up in 8 volumes or so we're nearing the end. This is actually the first edition of Heaven Official's Blessing that I started collecting, so I'll be a bit sad when I'm done. But I'm also really excited to see all of the volumes together on my shelf. But speaking of my shelves, I seriously need to reorganize them soon. They look disastrous. I also recently got a huge assortment of mxtx merch. I'm only showing a few of my favorites. A couple of these are fan-made, like the pouch. Some are from Japan. Up next, I picked up a couple copies of The Husky and His White Cat Shizuen by Meatbun. I have Volume 3 of the Simplified Chinese edition, which I made a video about a few weeks ago. Those books came with so much merch. I'm still swimming in it, and I'll definitely make a selling post soon. But the more exciting one for me, we finally have Volume 1 of the English edition. I can't believe this is in my hands now. This is real, and it's so beautiful. I can't. Life is so good right now. I also have 2 standees from the Firefly ACG Expo. These standees were available only in person, and I feel so lucky that I was able to pick these up. Anyway, I love Arha so much. If I were to rank all of my favorite novels, I'm pretty sure this would be in the top 5. It has absolutely everything I need. It's sweet, painful, action-packed, tender, everything. I love the characters, I love Meatbun's writing. I didn't get a chance to gush about this in my unboxing video, but I really do love her writing style. It's very lyrical. I would love to be fluent enough in Chinese one day so that I could fully appreciate her writing as it was originally written. But I think the translators did a really good job. I really enjoyed rereading this. I will admit though, sometimes it's hard for me to reread an angsty work because I just want to skip to the sweetness instead. But it's okay, I'll tough it out. Arha is worth all of the pain that comes with it. Up next, I picked up Volume 2 of the Vietnamese edition of Chiang Jin Jiu by Tang Jiu-Qing. I actually have not read this volume yet, but it's pretty high on my TBR list. And since I do plan on reading it soon, I figured I'd just start buying it now. In terms of my reading preferences, I actually prefer modern settings, and I don't generally read novels with strong political themes, but Chiang Jin Jiu is really popular in my circles, so I wanted to check it out. If I'm being completely honest, I also got art baited by this cover. Whoever this man is, his clothing is so beautiful. Once I wrap up a couple of the novels I'm reading right now, I shall try to dive into this one. Next, I picked up Volume 3 of pbox Painter of the Night. I made a separate unboxing video for this book. I think that video went up before this haul did, so hopefully you've checked it out. If not, you can head there to get an in-depth look at this book and the merch. Sometimes I'm genuinely surprised by the fact that I enjoy Painter of the Night as much as I do. I love my wholesome, fluffy, slice-of-life books, and Painter of the Night is the exact opposite of all of that. But hey, what can we do? Next, I picked up a Painter of the Night music jewelry box. This is a replica of the music box that Seungho bought for Nagyam in one of the chapters, and it was also in that unboxing video earlier. Last, but certainly not least, I picked up Oremiko by Sakura. Oh boy, this manga is such an anomaly in so many ways. One, in my vibe-based organization for this video, I had no idea where to fit this volume in. 2, perhaps more alarming, I don't even remember ordering this manga. I wonder if this was a late-night insomnia-induced purchase. Who knows? But after looking at this cover, I have a feeling I bought this because I'm in my big muscles, beefy man era. Just look at these dudes. And finally, 3, the manga itself. When I read this book for the first time, I was so slack-jawed. This one book somehow packed in almost every single kinky fetish or trope one can imagine. Aphrodisiacs, threesomes, furries, many flavors of monster sex, ropes and bondage, you name it. It was a trip. To backtrack a little bit, I am a fairly serious person, for better or for worse. So during my first read-through, I was honestly a little concerned. I thought this was so not it. Not healthy at all. Keep the sexual demon attacks away from me. But as I kept reading, I realized that this manga was probably not meant to be read so seriously. And by the time I got to the end, I was really confused on how to feel about it. So I knew I had to reread this manga after giving my brain a break, which is what I did. And the second time around, I really enjoyed this. It was bizarre, kinky, and such a wild experience. It went from 0 to 100 within a few pages and maintained that momentum the entire time. It was also so funny, like exorcisms a la semen, trading ones, to get hard on command. Absolutely ridiculous. But when I realized everything in this manga had a bit of zaniness already, weird things like that fit right in. Context is important. The art is also top-notch. I think I'm weaker than I thought when it comes to muscles because I could not stop ogling these characters. I think ultimately my only issue with the manga is that it was sometimes just hard to follow along. I sometimes couldn't really follow a scene or a train of thought and just had to roll with it and accept it as it was. That definitely made things confusing at times. So I'm at an impasse. On one hand, this was a surprisingly interesting erotic adventure, but on the other, I need more world building. Does that make me sound boring? I don't know. The author does plan on writing spin-offs and extras, and I'm actually excited for those. Overall, I did not think I was going to enjoy this manga as much as I did. It's definitely not my type of story, but I had fun reading it anyway. I think if you're in the mood for an off-the-wall BL with all sorts of fetishes and kinks in it, you'll probably also have fun with this. And with that, we are at the end of another haul. I hope you had fun watching. There have been a lot of tragedies and just pain around the world recently, and if any of them have affected you, I hope you have time to step away from it. I hope you can take a breather and find some peace of mind somehow. As always, I hope you're safe, happy, and healthy. I shall see you again soon.